Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's me and Ashley, and we're going to be presenting the basics of IVF and surrogacy. I'm so excited for this topic. I think getting into the surrogacy um, field is you really need to know the basics before starting anything, just because there's so much information, and we're so excited to share this topic with you.
So I'm Ashley. If you haven't met me before, I am the intake director or the director of surrogate program or the program surrogate. It's been a long day.
Yeah, for both of
I'm
us.
Ashley anyway, so something, and it's a director over at SurrogateFirst. I'm also a 4-time surrogate who's retired now, and here to just kind of help the surrogacy community. Um, I have been with SurrogateFirst from the very beginnings, and I know, Yessenia, you have been with us for quite some time now too, so maybe you can share a little bit about yourself too.
Yes. Hey, everybody. My name is Yessenia. I am a surrogacy educator here at SurrogateFirst. It's almost been 2 years that I've been working with this amazing company, and I am a one-time surrogate and I'm a one-time egg donor as well. I like to throw out there. And I just started doing social media, talking about surrogacy, trying to educate others on the topic. And it's something that's a passion of mine. So I'm so happy to be here today.
Awesome. Now, why SurrogateFirst? So a couple things about SurrogateFirst. I'll share a little bit on the surrogate side. You are able to build your own compensation. So we do have a template, but you get to make final decisions on those numbers and your base comp and things like that. We also have a health and wellness program that starts when you sign with SurrogateFirst and goes all the way through postpartum after you've delivered to help you work on your goals for after pregnancy. We have experienced GC coordinators and case managers. So someone will always have experienced surrogacy that you're going to be working with. And then we have a Surrogate Plus program and a supportive community of several hundred surrogates on Facebook that share what's going on in their lives with their surrogacies. They're asking questions. So that's a couple of reasons why I personally think you should choose SurrogateFirst. But I will have Yessenia kind of go over the overview.
Yeah. So today we're going to be just going over all of the basics. We're going to talk about the steps of the IVF process, medications, steps of the surrogacy process, things you need to know, and there'll be an opportunity at the end for you guys to ask any questions. So I see we have some participants, so feel free to ask us questions and we'll be answering those at the end. So we're so excited. So first, we're going to be talking about the basics of IVF and all of those steps and how that looks like. When you're an intended parent and you're doing IVF for surrogacy, and we're talking about gestational surrogacy here. So that's why you have to go through the process of IVF as an intended parent, because as an intended parent, you are using your own eggs that is going to be transferred over to the surrogate. So this can look like first getting ovarian stimulation, doing an egg retrieval, getting those eggs, and they're going to be doing PGT testing on those eggs and getting those transferred over to the surrogate eventually. So it's
in surrogacy, you got to make a couple decisions, right? So as parents are coming to surrogacy, it's usually a last resort for some parents. You've already created your embryos, you've done the egg retrieval, creating of those embryos with the egg and sperm, and then PG testing. But others are coming into this without any idea on their IVF clinics or information. Some of our parents are dads and they've never thought about the IVF process or carrying their own child. And so they may need an egg donor and a surrogate to help them with their children. So that's kind of that process. There is a timeline and we've got some of that information too. If you have questions more about this stuff, obviously we are not medical professionals. So we're going to want you to always reach out to the IVF clinic. We're just giving you some examples of what we've seen in the field when we talk about the process or we talk about the medications. On the process side, clinics are different too. So some clinics can go old school. I had a very old school clinic. So I was on Lupron, I was on all the medications. I had an extended, process. So mine, instead of it being like 2-3 weeks before transfer, I was on medications 5 weeks before transfer. So there's definitely some differences in the IVF protocols. And then when it comes to medications, some are more natural cycles, still requires medications, and others are going to be full medication list and several things. I think I was on mainly 3 items, but I think it was up to 5 to 6 that I had to be on during the process.
Yeah, I was on a very medicated journey. So we have a list of some of the medications here that you could be taking when you're going through the IVF process. For me, I was on a few of these. I was on aspirin, I was on Lupron, I was on estradiol, I was on progesterone. There are so many different medications, but it varies clinic to clinic. So it really depends on which clinic you're matched with the intended parents.
Yeah, it really does. And while we can have a say in like our preferences, the doctors know best, so we always want to follow them. I know we're not going to go over all of those medications we just shared with you, but we wanted to share that there are quite a few medications. They're going to be taken either orally, either through like a suppository, a vaginal suppository. You've also got intramuscular injections, and then you have some subcutaneous injections. So bellies, hips, all kinds of things that you'll be going through. So be prepared to be okay with sticking you with all of those shots during the process.
Yeah, and so, like I was saying earlier, like this is mandatory for being a gestational surrogate. If you don't know what that is, gestational surrogacy is where you're carrying a baby that is not related to you. So that's why we're preparing our bodies to take their embryo. And it's kind of like important that we take the medications, we follow this strict calendar so we can accept their embryo, because at the end of the day, this embryo is 2 weeks old and we're trying to trick our bodies into taking it.
So the next step would be, we've talked about the steps of, the IVF process, very just touching on it, talked about the medications. Yessenia, can you share the steps of surrogacy, what it looks like for an intended parent, or why don't you do what looks like for a surrogate, and then I'll do the intended parent side?
Yes, so just to go over everything. So the basics of surrogacy. The first thing you're going to start off with is doing your application and applying with an agency. This is going to require lots of different documents to sign during this process. We have like a surrogate to-do list. So you're going to get an updated pap smear within the last 2 years, an OB clearance form, removal of any birth control implants. So that's just preparing your body to start the surrogacy process. You could also gather insurance information, and then you're going to be signing a lot of documents. So you're going to be signing like your commitment agreement, your compensation package, your ROI release form, medical records release, background check. And there's a lot of different forms you're going to be signing at the beginning of this process. So that's just kind of like getting started. So doing your application, getting all these forms over to us, completing your intake interview, just doing your screening process. And this also includes like the background check, the drug panel, and your intake interview. So just seeing if you're a right fit for surrogacy, the agency reviewing all these different things. Then the next step is going to be matching with intended parents. Right. I'm making sure I'm not skipping it over anything. So yeah, after the screening process is matching with your intended parents. And there's a lot of different factors to consider when you're choosing intended parents. And it really depends on each surrogate, what her preferences are. There is many different factors to consider. We'll probably be doing another webinar soon about like match meeting and what to expect during this process. But some of the things that we have on here are factors to consider. If you want to work with a domestic family, a family here in the United States, or if you would prefer to work with an international family, what kind of relationship you would like to have with your parents, the stance on termination. How do you feel about termination? How do you feel about vaccination? There's a lot of different things that are discussed during this match meeting, just so we're matching you with the best intended parents for your journey. Sorry, just catch my breath real there. Yeah. And then after matching, I guess we could talk a little bit about medical screening. So Ashley, I know you're a little bit more knowledgeable about this than me, but what goes on a medical screening? What kind of procedures are done and what to expect?
Yeah, definitely. So on the medical screening aspect, you're going to go into their clinic for a day trip. They're going to do a transvaginal ultrasound. They may do like a hysteroscopy or a hydrosonogram. Again, not a medical professional. So if I kill these words, don't come for me. And so they're basically just checking to make sure that your lining of your uterus looks healthy. They're going to do FDA labs, talk to you, get to meet the clinic. Sometimes they go over the medical protocol, like what that medication protocol is going to look like. And then you fly home. You get your clearance in a week or two, and then you're able to start legal. So that's kind of that medical screening process. I'd say the timeline normally is about 1 to 2 months for the medical, 1 to 2 months for the medical screening, meaning that you're trying to get into the clinic with the right cycle. Also, they needed to review your records so that you could meet the parents. So there's a lot of things going on in those like 1 to 3 months with the clinic waiting for that approval. And then comes like legal, and that legal process will be about 4 to 8 weeks. So you'll meet with your attorney. They're going to share the contract with you. You're going to make sure that it follows, what you guys had all agreed upon. The parents are going to agree upon, and then you're going to sign it. But maybe you can share a little bit about what goes into a contract, that they could look at.
Yes, so these surrogacy contracts are very long. When you're working with the agency, you will be provided your own attorney going into this, and the parents will have their own separate attorney. And so they're both draft the contract, and some of the basics of the contracts are the responsibilities of both the surrogate and the intended parents. What do you have to do as a surrogate? What are your responsibilities about traveling, the different state laws and regulations, like your contract's going to be different if you're in California than when you're in Georgia, just because of the state laws and things like that. It's also going to include your compensation, your agreement that you sign with the agency, just to have it all in paper so everybody understands what's going on moving forward. And then there's also going to be some pregnancy related decisions, including communication and delivery, and just what to expect for the journey.
Now I'll stop you from there, right? Because now we're up to the medical screening and the legal, and you're going to be preparing for transfer. We talked already about some of those IVF medications, but on the parent side, what you're expecting and what that timeline looks like is the average surrogacy agency, from my own research and working with many different parents in my coaching program, is that you have a wait time of anywhere from like 3 to 9 months right now for a lot of the agencies. Some go up to 18 months, some go to 24 months. During that matching process, you're usually going to have to turn in your IDs, show a report of your embryo, report to confirm if they've been PG tested or not. Some agencies require that, some don't. You're also going to do background checks, and then you have to do a parent education meeting with a psychologist or a mental health professional. That's not to determine if you can be a parent. It's more so about learning about what are the ups and downs, what are the tools that are going to be needed, creating healthy boundaries, those types of items. So those are always required to go through the surrogacy process. You need to have that completed. Then you're waiting around for your surrogate, and you're trying to figure out, what would be the greatest match for you. Little hint or tip: always let the clinic deal with the medical side of it. Like, they know the ASRM guidelines, they have those strategies, but for you, thinking about communication, compensation, location, termination, lining up on the same termination side of it, making sure, even vaccinations, like those are some important 5 shuns that you should have when you're trying to figure out your surrogate personality. Those are the type of items that you want to be looking for when you're looking for your match, and then let the clinic do the hard part of the medical side of it. So now parents have got their screening done. They've got an idea of what they want for their surrogate. They're going to see a profile. Either that surrogate has looked at their pro and approved them, or they are seeing the surrogate for the first time and is deciding if they want to match with that surrogate. Once they've approved the surrogate profile and the surrogate approves their profile, records are going to go to the clinic. They're going to wait for that. Then you're going to be able to do a Zoom match meeting, be able to do during that medical process leading up to the legal, a group session with a mental health professional, and then going into legal, just like you. They're going to have to review that contract. Their attorneys are going to draft it. They're going to make sure it's what they agreed upon, and then be able to finally get into like the frozen embryo transfer.
Yes. And so the legal phase is kind of called like legal clearance, is something that we call it here at our agency. And after you get your legal clearance, then you're going to be able to start those medications. You're going to be able to get your frozen embryo transfer done. So like we said, it's different for every clinic. Like for example, I had a very heavily medicated cycle, just like Ashley did. I believe I was on medications for like the first 5 weeks prior to transfer. And then something we forgot to touch on is like monitoring appointments. So periodically, when you're taking these medications, you're going to have to get up really early in the morning and then get blood work done. And you're going to have to get ultrasounds done. Sometimes it's every 3 days, every 2 days, just depends on how your levels are looking. They want to make sure that you're reacting correctly to the medication so they can adjust dosages and during this time, you're in communication with your clinic. They might say, increase this one a little bit today, and just to get that timeline for transfer to make sure your body is the best it could be to receive that embryo.
Yeah, and just to clarify, that all happens after legal. So the legal clearance happens, that legal clearance is sent to the IVF clinic. The IVF clinic says, okay, great, now we'll schedule the calendar for transfer. And then those outside monitoring appointments are happening as you're leading up to that frozen embryo transfer. Perfect.
It's one of the most exciting points in surrogacy is finally getting the embryo transfer. And then after you receive the embryo transfer, it's honestly, a lot of people think it might be a painful process, but in my experience, it wasn't painful at all. And then just a few days later, you're going to be able to take at-home pregnancy tests, or typically with the clinic, you'll be doing beta blood tests, and then to find out you're officially pregnant. And then yeah, so it's really exciting. I see that we have some people in here, so if you would like to ask us any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We would love to answer your questions.
And then as we're going through that, so once the transfer occurs, then at about a week to 2 weeks later, you're going to do what you were saying, the HCG test, right? Checking if we have that hormone. About 4 weeks after the transfer, we're going to check for heartbeat, because you're technically 6 weeks pregnant. And then about 8 to 10 weeks, you get released from your IVF clinic and you get to go to your OBGYN to finish out the pregnancy. Was that pretty similar to your experience, Yessenia?
Yeah, that was very similar. I believe I finished my medications at around 12 weeks. 12 weeks pregnant. We had our heartbeat confirmation around 6 weeks. I was very excited for that. It kind of like makes everything real, like, wow, the baby's there. It worked. It's such an exciting moment.
I love that. And then you went to your OB about 15 to 20 weeks. Now, the difference is I was in California, Nevada for my surrogacies. You were in Florida. So now between 15 to 20 weeks with a pre-birth state, we start our pre-birth orders, so the PBOs. However, with a post-birth state, yours start in like the last trimester and they're not actually signed till baby's born, and then they go to the courts, right? So that's the difference between the pre-birth and post-birth process.
Yeah, it's really unique state to state. Honestly, even when I was first beginning the process, I didn't even really know what a pre-birth order was, what a post-birth order was. I just thought the initial contract, like, that's everything right there. That's what I initially thought. So yeah, expect that to happen, the post-birth order, it's kind of like legalizes the surrogacy to say, this is not my child, I'm doing it for them, and just making it all legal.
Yeah. And with the gestational carrier agreement, that all is stated in there. So even if the pre-birth order, so now in some states say they don't get a pre-birth order, sorry, it's been a long day. I've been dealing with allergies, but because they haven't received a pre-birth order, and if the baby was born, parents would have to do more of like an adoption process. So it's important that all those documentations, the gestational carrier agreement is completed, the pre-birth order, pre-birth order occurs before birth in those pre-birth states, or the paperwork is kind of finalized in that 3rd trimester with the post-birth state. Right. So after we get that done, now we're just on baby watch, aren't we?
Yeah. It's super exciting being in those final weeks. Like sometimes depending on where your intended parents are, if they are international intended parents, they might come down a month before baby is born. Or if they're more local, they might just be hanging around and just waiting for that final call. I know for me, my intended parents were only a drive away. It was like an 8-hour drive for them. So they waited until I was in labor to start that drive. Yeah, I was very nervous, but they had a lot of time. They got to even be there for my labor and delivery, but I know it could be very different because I know you carried for international families. So how did that work when it came to labor and delivery?
Yeah, so not every surrogacy did the parents make it in time. My 3rd surrogacy was during COVID, so they had a lot of delays and quarantines, and so it made it hard to be there. But most times they came down like 2 weeks ahead of time, 2-3 weeks. I go full term pretty much, so there wasn't a concern. The first surrogacy, luckily, mom also had gotten pregnant, so she had traveled to the US prior to her 3rd trimester because she didn't want to like not be able to get both boys because they were like 3 weeks apart.
Right.
And so I ended up going into labor at 36 weeks. And so she was already in the country and was able to come up and be there, I think that night or that morning, the next morning, already for baby.
Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, I think it brings down a lot of anxiety just knowing that the family is there. It's it's a beautiful moment, and whenever you finally give birth and give them their baby for the first time, it's really an amazing moment. And then after a few days, they go home, and then it's the end.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was lucky. My family stayed for, couple weeks trying to get all the paperwork situated because in international cases, intended parents may be here for at least 30 days as they wait for social security cards and birth certificates and passports and visas and whatever's needed. There's a lot that parents have to get done afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that though. It's kind of like, yeah, they don't have to go home straight away. So it kind of makes it a little better because I feel
Yeah.
like more than anything at the end, I was just like, oh, like I'm gonna miss them. I'm gonna miss this experience. And here at Surrogate First, after you completed your surrogacy journey, we have an amazing postpartum program. And you could talk to other girls that have just recently given birth just to share your experiences and just have support because I feel like a lot of surrogates at the end of the journey, they kind of feel like, oh, that's it. Like, and it's like you're doing this amazing thing, you're getting all this attention, and then just like it's over. So it's really nice to that we have that supportive community, and it is open to any surrogate, any agency, even if you're an independent surrogate, because we truly just want to support other surrogates in this time of the postpartum stage. We call it the fourth trimester here.
Yeah, and I think it's important because parents are going through so many changes too, and they're getting used to their baby and they're going to become parents. They're like, oh my gosh, like I have this whole human I've got to keep alive now, right? And so surrogates, we're going back into our lives. Plus, our bodies were created to create these hormones to bond, right, with our young, so we don't throw them off to the wolves. And so we have to kind of balance out those hormones, and we have to be patient with ourselves and work with others. And a lot of times only surrogates really understand what it's like to be a surrogate. Like I cried a lot, but I never cried for the baby. I cried for the season that was ending. I cried for my friends going home. I cried for those kind of things, just plain hormones. And so I think that fourth trimester group is really important for our surrogates. The other side of it is it's important for intended parents to realize that you can suffer from postpartum depression after your baby's born because there's such a big change in your life. And a lot of parents, that are intended parents that suffer with PPD, they feel a lot of guilt because they feel like, oh my gosh, we went through this whole process. We spent all this money and we're having these feelings like we're horrible people. You're not horrible people. Like keeping a human alive is tough. And especially with, it just boom, one day you guys are preparing and the next day there's a baby there, or there's two babies, depending on how that embryo splits.
Yeah.
So it's important for everyone to kind of be kind, really realize the mental health side of it and get that support and have your friends and not feel guilty if you're an intended parent or a surrogate. If you're a surrogate and you're feeling sad about the whole situation ending, don't feel guilty about that. Don't feel embarrassed by that. You did a beautiful thing. And this is something that, some women deal with, and always ask for help. Always get that help you're going to need. So we talked about the process. Then we have about, I'd say 6 to 9 months of closing out the escrow, right? Making sure lab works, OBs, hospitals are paid, health insurance is paid. There hasn't been any complications. And then that's kind of where we call the end of the surrogacy journey, is about 9 months postpartum, when everything's been paid off and the escrow gets closed.
Yes, that's kind of like the final thing. Just making sure all your medical bills are paid up and everything like that. I think it would be important for us to share like things that new surrogates should know. I think my best advice to somebody becoming a surrogate is doing their research on the entire process. If you visit our website at surrogatefirst.com, we have this whole timeline spread out for you so you can see how long every step takes. We have a frequently asked questions section on our website as well, so definitely check that out. But also, just being a surrogate takes a lot of patience and it takes a lot of responsibility, and that is something that I wanted to share.
No, definitely. And I was actually going to show how easy it is to look around on the SurrogateFirst page, because we did just kind of work on that. And so let me see if I can share that. Okay.
It's all brand new and pretty.
Can you see, is it sharing the screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. Okay. So for the surrogate side of it, you're going to be able to come down and there are a bunch. So how do you become a surrogate? How do I qualify? What is the, how's the compensation, our wellness program, postpartum program. We also have a bunch of like the frequently asked questions in this group. So right here in the Surrogates Academy, you're going to see videos of other people. And so you've got a bunch of questions down to medications. There's podcasts, webinars that we've done, articles. So there's a lot of information. And same thing for the intended parents. We try to give a ton of information. And so you can look and check out all of the different eyes, right? So pathways and calculators and service providers. So definitely check that out. It is a very valuable website. And I know we never showed on the webinar, but I know Jeff worked really hard on it, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is amazing. I'm really happy that you showed how easy it was. But yeah, we have so many answers to your questions on that website, and yeah. So
And then what are some tips that you have? So I would say, you said researching, right?
yes.
I would want to, make sure you're done having your own children. You never know if there's going to be a complication. And so you want to be done. You don't want to live the rest of your life thinking, oh, I should have added another child to my family. Two, don't do it for the money. It's not worth the money. And really, there's so many ups and downs emotionally that if you're not going into it to help a family, and obviously compensation is nice, but if you're not going into it with the right, heart, you're going to nitpick. You're not going to be happy with any of the situations instead of how beautiful, surrogacy can go. 3, pick a really reliable agency. Never go independent. I personally, this is just me personally saying this, I would never go independent on my first surrogacy. So I'd always want to make sure that at least I go through an agency, learn from them, understand the process, the timeline. I thought I knew everything when we opened SurrogateFirst, like, oh, as an experienced surrogate, like I know everything. No, I didn't. Agencies do a lot of things behind the scenes. So make sure you learn stuff, learn the process before you ever go independent.
Yeah, and we have a question here.
Oh yeah.
So somebody asked, what if we signed with another agency but haven't completed medical record requests? I'm pretty early in the process. Can I avoid the contract and sign with SurrogateFirst, or am I kind of stuck because I signed the agreement?
So we would never ever want to poach on any other agency. So what I'll share from our SurrogateFirst perspective is, in any of our paperwork, you're not tied to us. We want you to stay with SurrogateFirst because you trust us. You are being educated, you're being supported. So if you were signed with us, there would be no harm to just let your coordinator know, hey, like, I'm not feeling I have this connection. I want to go to a different agency. You would let them know, and then you would head out. I don't know what the other agency's timeline and everything is. I know a lot of times there's like common mistakes with agencies where maybe they're not communicating enough, or maybe you have a coordinator who maybe is not doing their job to the standard of the agency, and the agency has no idea. So I would always speak with the agency, speak with a supervisor, a manager, a director, explain like, hey, these are the things I'm kind of disappointed on. I'm not wanting to move forward. They may be able to rectify them. If they're not able to, or you're met with different, disrespect in that aspect, then you can make that decision from there. But I think it's important that agencies know, like, hey, you're not meeting my expectation. Because there's no perfect agencies. Like, I would love to be like, hey, come to SurrogateFirst. We love you. We've got like 50 parents that need surrogates.
Yeah.
But if we're being good people, we need to, tell you, hey, like, it's important to kind of talk to them. If you're not met with that respect and you decide that I'm no longer going to move forward, then call us, we'll talk with you. But see if they'll change your coordinator, or they'll give you, they will help you in a more ethical way.
Right. Good answer. Yeah, because I feel like when I was starting the process, I was talking to a few agencies, and then some agencies just like stopped communication. And I'm just like, this is something serious. I need to be communicated with, and communication goes a long way. So definitely, yeah.
Why we did away with our timeline, right? We used to say like, hey, give us 3 months to find you the right match. but we don't own anybody, you know, with our agency. We don't own the surrogate. We don't own any parents. And so we want people to stay with us. And that's why with our intended parents, we don't charge a match fee until they're actually matched. You can get on our wait list, you know, you have to be screened, but you have, you know, you can get on our wait list. And that's the reason we want you to stay with Surrogate First, because you enjoy us, you trust us, and you want us to help you with your process. We don't want to ever hold anyone ransom. It does suck though. So if you're a surrogate and you're applying, make sure you do your research, you figure out what you want, and always be honest with the agency, because I think it's a couple $1,000s to screen a surrogate from the beginning till matching with a parent. So.
Right. And if you guys have any follow-up questions, you can always reach out to us at our emails. My email is Yessenia@surrogatefirst.com. If you ever want to shoot me an email, any questions, anytime, I would love to answer your questions in the future. And Ashley, how can I contact you?
Can't. No, I'm just joking. It's Ashley. Call me. It's Ashley at surrogatefirst.com. So ASHLEY at surrogatefirst.com. You can also reach us on our website. So we have different portals you can, you know, connect, request a meeting. You could also call us. And I am always so horrible at this number. So I'm going to share our screen so I can share our presentation. I'm always so bad with it. I'm like, I can never, it's such a cool and catchy phone number and that I can't remember. I don't know why. So it's actually 1-833-99-BLESS. And then I am sharing my screen. So give me just 1 second.
It's okay.
Obviously I would have all of this technology issues right now.
No, it's all good. I think we both had long days today.
It's been such a long day. I think my day started at 5 and my brain is just shutting down. And then with the allergies, I'm hot mess. There we go. Tell me that I did it.
Oh, there it is. There it is. I see it.
Oh, yeah. No, it's been a long day.
Yes.
So yeah, you can reach us out this way. We're always here to help and answer any questions. We are not medical providers. We are not legal attorneys. We're not licensed in that aspect. So we will try to give you information about what we've seen and what we have seen be common. But in the end, always head to the professionals for like mental health, legal, medical. They went to school a lot longer than we did. Awesome. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.